In a shocking move, Marvel has pushed back the release date of Avengers Doomsday to the holiday season of 2026. That spells doom, and in the worst way possible. Let's see why. In a sudden and shocking move, Avengers Doomsday was pushed back from May of 2026 to December of 2026. Instead of launching next year's summer blockbuster season, it will now be competing against all the other December releases. And Doomsday wasn't the only movie to move. No, the follow-up Avengers Secret Wars was similarly moved from May of 2027 to December of 2027, which means the Avengers movies are now holiday movies and no longer summer movies. This, however, is not a move which reveals any kind of confidence. Quite the contrary, as the Marvel slate is being culled. That Park Place writes, "The news comes as part of a larger theatrical slate reorganization from Disney. As part of the calendar overhaul, multiple untitled Marvel entries previously dated for February 13th of 2026, November 6th, 2026, and November 5th, 2027. Have been removed or rebranded as generic, untitled Disney projects. In other words, those were 3 MCU movies that, while they had not been announced to the public, were in aggressive development behind the scenes and which now have been scrapped." The write-up continues, "That leaves Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day as the only officially scheduled Marvel Cinematic Universe releases for the 2026 calendar year. However, it's currently unknown whether Spider-Man Brand New Day, a Sony co-production tied to the MCU, will also move its debut back to release between the 2 Avengers films. That placement had reportedly been intended to bridge the narrative gap between Doomsday and Secret Wars, much in the way Captain Marvel connected Infinity War and Endgame. At this time, however, it's unclear if Sony will maintain its original release window or adjust in response to this Disney delay. I can tell you with 100% certainty that if the next Spider-Man indeed is intended to bridge the gap between Avengers movies, it too will be delayed. Meaning, after Fantastic Four First Steps, there will be no new MCU movies for a year and a half. That Park Place points out, this marks the longest pause between Marvel theatrical releases since the 2019 to 2021 lockdown-era break between Spider-Man Far From Home and Black Widow. Disney still has placeholder dates for untitled Marvel films on February 18th, May 5th, and November 10th of 2028. However, there's no solid information on what films these could be. At this stage, they probably aren't entirely sure of that themselves, as that's going to depend on how people will respond to these next Avengers movies, so that's distant long-term future right there, while Marvel is concerned with survival in the near and intermediate future. At their current rate, there might not be any long-term distant future. That Park Place continues. The delay aligns with comments made earlier this year by Disney CEO Bob Iger, who acknowledged the company's need to slow output and refocus its Marvel division. By consolidating a bit and having Marvel focus much more on their films, we believe that will result in better quality, Iger said during a recent investor call. Which of course is a tacit admission that quality has indeed been lacking, but he conveniently skipped over why, namely his own insistence on the movies being made dependent on the shitty and overpriced MCU series on his brainchild Disney+, and on Kevin Feige's insistence on going all woke and all female-centric at all times, something Iger enthusiastically signed off on. In other words, Bob Iger and Kevin Feige together are responsible for the MCU unraveling as badly as it has. Just look at this year's movies. Captain America Brave New World is shaping up to be an as big or bigger flop than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, so it's a good thing Harrison Ford had Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone prequel 1923 ready to go to save his legacy. While Thunderbolts, a movie no one actually calls the new Avengers, although we are expected to accept that as the real title, is being outperformed by The Eternals, a movie damn near everyone hates. And unlike it, Thunderbolts actually has decent word of mouth. But as it turns out, decent word of mouth isn't enough to bring back an audience that already has checked out after years of woke abuse. And as a direct result of that, hype for the Fantastic Four: First Steps is non-existent. In fact, announcing this move already now can even be seen as a major lack of confidence in the Fantastic Four on Marvel and Disney's part, which would fit right in with reports that the final act of that movie is being reshot in its entirety due to negative test screenings, and that can only hurt the movie's chances further. There have also been rumors that even Avengers Doomsday has continued Kevin Feige's proud tradition of commencing production without the script actually being completed. And so for all we know, they could be seeing already that they're going to need an additional 3/4 of a year to figure out what kind of a movie they're actually making, and then make the best version of it they possibly can once they find that out. Again, I don't know for sure that that is the cause for the delay, but having studied this company for years now, I honestly wouldn't put it past them. The only reason the MCU ever took off and sustained success for as long as it did was some key filmmakers like Jon Favreau and James Gunn, and the quality control and checks and balances offered by Ike Perlmutter's Marvel Creative Committee, which I have detailed extensively in earlier videos. It was when that quality control was disbanded by Bob Iger and Kevin Feige that the MCU unraveled for real and ran into the ground, like that container ship did in my country the other day. That unraveling, of course, poses a major threat for Marvel with these release dates. For more than a decade now, Marvel has always kicked off the summer blockbuster season. They owned the first weekend of May release slot, and no one dared challenge them. Or that is, DC did once in the summer of 2016 with Batman v Superman, whose original release date was the first weekend of May of 2016, opposite an, at the time, untitled Captain America 3. You see, they had figured that Captain America would yield to the might of Batman and Superman on screen together for the first time and move away. But when Captain America 3 turned out to be Captain America Civil War, or Captain America vs. Iron Man, or even the Avengers 2.5, it was instead Warner that blinked and moved away. That made Marvel a bit cocky, and perhaps that is why they think they can just barge into the holiday season, assuming everyone else is going to move away from them again. But I'm not so sure anyone is going to blink this time. Other movies from competing studios opening in December of 2026 include Jumanji 3, Dune Messiah, and Shrek 5. Which one of these is going to blink for Avengers Doomsday if Fantastic Four only manages to limp across 400 million worldwide? And that may be a best case scenario. Because at that point, who is to say that even an Avengers movie from the team that ruined the MCU will be able to perform much better than the Fantastic Four? Or is there an outside chance this new release date can actually turn things around for the MCU? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.